Welcome all to the Millie Roundtable show. We're already in week 10. We only have 8 more weeks after this one of the Millie Roundtable, only a couple more months. Obviously, we got Thanksgiving coming up. We got a whole bunch of international games. We got the Colts Patriots tomorrow. We have a whole lot of action in between now and the Super Bowl, and a lot of it's going to be on the gridiron, of course. I'm joined by my guy Snyder, my guy Drew, Red Kachik as well. So a perfect duo, a perfect trio, hopefully. Yeah, it's more of a good duo. I'm just a third wheel with you guys, but a good duo to talk some football with. And Snyder, how are you doing today, man?
I'm doing all right, man. Looking forward to this 10-gamer here. We got a good afternoon slate as well that we'll dive into more so on the premium side there. But and we got some tasty matchups this week, I think, though, to kind of dive into here.
Yeah, 100%. And a full day of football once again. It's feel like we've had a full day of football morning game for the last 6 weeks now. So, Drew, are you planning on playing that early morning showdown tomorrow?
I don't know if I am. No, no. It's been a rough couple of weeks, and one of these days I'm just hoping to sleep in. So I've been, been holding out, and then when I wake up, I end up reserving. So it depends on when I wake up. So we'll see. Fingers crossed I don't have to.
If you were smart, unless you're using Run Pure Sports content, getting all the cores, all the playbook, all the flow chart and projections and everything that we have to offer, you're going to be missing out on the Colts and Patriots if you sleep in. I'll tell you, that's a fair trade. Missing Colts, Patriots, or sleeping in, or not sleeping in. I think I'm just going to sleep in tomorrow. That seems to be the plan.
Could be a lose-lose. I just play. I play it and I wake up at 6 a.m. So
that's probably the best way to do it. Is that you wake up, put your lineups in, and then just sleep through the game and hope you.
That'd be ideal. Yeah.
Yeah, but that seems like a little bit of a weird situation. I don't like gambling on stuff.
That messes up the whole day.
100%. And if you guys are interested in the showdown content for the Patriots and Colts, we have a complete playbook up. That'll be up in the morning, I should say, with 8 core spots for each site. So be sure to get in and check it all out by then. Code NBA15, 15% off your first payment as well. 10 games to get into. Quite a few decent spots. A lot of people kind of came in with a pessimistic view of this week, but you got some good games across the board here and a few domes as well. Weather doesn't seem to be a major concern in many of these games either. So it seems like we could have a good week of scoring. And the first game I'm going to kick it off with is a dome environment. It's with the brand new Minnesota Vikings quarterback, Joshua Dobbs, after going off last week in relief for Jaren Hall. He takes on the New Orleans Saints. So if you look at this game here, Hawkinson might get a little bit of popularity. It's just tight end, weakest position probably on the slate, I would say. And he is the only player projected for double-digit ownership in this game, with a total above 40. Josh Dobbs, who has shown the ability to run. Mangone, believe it or not, was the one who was trying to sell me on Josh Dobbs. And I can buy it here. Snyder, give me your take on the Saints and Vikings.
We got the Saints and Vikings here. It's an interesting spot. We got a total of 41 with a close spread here, 3 points. I think you could kind of get after it here. We got a dome game here. We got some legitimate playmakers in this game. I could see maybe getting to some Josh Dobbs there. 5.5 is a fair price tag. He got, he's got that good rushing upside like you were talking about pre-show there. And Mangone was saying, he's been doing good with the legs. 3 straight games. He's had a rushing touchdown. The Saints are kind of vulnerable to that. So I think there's definitely some legs there. I think it's an easy pair with Hawkinson, who will be kind of popular as a tight end option there. Only at $5K, great value for him there. I think you could go there. I generally don't like to attack the Saints with a running back, so I'll probably be off of the Minnesota running attack there. So from the running back standpoint, so I would generally lean to the passing attack there. I think you can go to Brandon Powell too there from the Vikings side at 3-2. I think he's a good salary saver there as well. Chris Olave is a guy I'm gonna go to this week. I've been kind of hesitant to play him lately, but he's been close to putting up like a big game. I think the big game is definitely coming though here soon. The targets are just there game in, game out, 10, 15, 9, 8. He's going to bust one loose here big, I think. I think he's going to go for 100+ and a touchdown this week, so I'm in on Chris Olave there. So he would be the obvious run back for me in this situation. But definitely like some pieces in this game, though.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a spot where you have a clear target tree on each side of the ball, too. Obviously, with Josh Dobbs, you're going to get Jordan Addison, KJ Osborne, and TJ Hawkinson. I imagine I'm assuming they're all going to play, but I think Osborne in particular, he was the most questionable coming in. He was a full participant on Friday, so I imagine he's going to play. You have a clear target tree there. You also have Akers out of the picture, right? You have Madison kind of slotting into RB1. For the Saints, though, it's a little bit more messy, right, Drew? We talked about Alvin Kamara last week, and he was not the reason if you won or lost last week at all. He was definitely not. The real reason if you won a tournament or didn't, it was the Houston Texans stack. And obviously, a lot of the running backs kind of underwhelmed. But is it time? Is it time to officially sound the alarms on the Alvin Kamara train? Are we going to be going back to the well here at over 8K yet again?
We talked about the running back pool is kind of small this week, so yes. I haven't run a ton of lineups to know if Kamara is getting thrown in there just yet. He is going to be probably sub 10%, I'm guessing. So this probably would be the spot to go back to him instead of 38% or whatever he was last week. He was probably close to 50% in some contests. So would be an interesting tournament pivot. Obviously at 8,300, he's expensive. Hawkinson, I think, actually gets a nice price decrease, right? Wasn't he like 6,200 or something last week, or it was 6K or just over 6K, I think. So I think Hawkinson's a good tight end to go to. Olave, I think I talked crap on Olave last week, and then the Sims jammed him in. I had like 38% Olave last week, so I'll probably go back to some Olave. I haven't been playing a lot of Michael Thomas. He projects out well for the price, but I just haven't been getting there. Honestly, I don't really trust the New Orleans offense to be quite fair. Derek Carr has had a couple good games strung together, good for Derek Carr, and I'm not sure that really continues. So for me, it's really like Hawkinson from a tight end perspective, just to fill the tight end spot. Olave's fine. You throw him in there with Derek Carr. Kamara as a single is totally fine, but I'm not super in love with this game. I'm probably not going to go to Joshua Dobbs. It's really just top of the board for me, man. It's just kind of more of a roster scarcity for TJ Hawkinson. And then I think Olave still has, I mean, like if you look at his ceiling, he's probably like 22 points or something like that as a ceiling, 20 points. And like, that's still like 85th percentile. So like theoretically, he still has like 35 point upside. So that's probably why I got him last week when he was sub 10%. And I'll probably do the same again this week.
Yeah, 100%. Even with the quarterback situation with Jaren Hall kind of going out early, obviously, and then you have Josh Dobbs stepping in, Hawkinson's production did not increase or decrease, right? It stayed the same roughly with no matter who.
Exactly what I said last week, though, right? Like they want to rely on like the guys that can get some targets, get some catches, and build his confidence a little bit. And like the tight end, especially a good one like Hawkinson, fills that gap perfectly. Like they just want to pepper him, get some downs, and move the ball up a little bit. So like Hawkinson, man, he's kind of fail safe in that regard. Like the volume should be there.
100%, and the price decreases. The biggest thing here, 6,200 to 5K, like you just said just a moment ago. This is too cheap for Hawkinson. I came in not wanting to play the game, and I told Mango, and I said, "Are you really trying to sell me on Josh Dobbs on a 10-game slate?" Right? But it does make sense if you're wanting to kind of save money on a quarterback and we wanted to pair a quarterback with high upside at no ownership, right? I'm going to do the Josh Dobbs sell because I told Mangone that I'm going to sell on it, but I'm going to go ahead and just sell it to people here so they can have the situation. All right. TJ Hawkinson, obviously super underpriced. Do you think Josh Dobbs, new offensive environment, he was a stud in Arizona, but also I was noted the New Orleans Saints conceded some of the most rushing yards to opposing quarterbacks in the league. Over the entire season, Josh Dobbs hit 40 yards or more rushing in 6 of his last 8 games. All right. So if you wanted to do a mini Dobbs Hawkinson stack, I definitely think this is a fine week to do it just because the quarterback can get there with his legs and Hawkinson is way too cheap for the volume he can get. And that's the sell that I'm going to give on this gross game. I'm with you guys on the Saints environment. No one's owned. So, obviously Taysom Hill is just meddling into that offense in a major way at 5,100, taking away carries at the goal line from Kamara, taking away opportunities from Derek Carr. It becomes very difficult to stack the Saints. The reason why we were getting a lot of Olave last week, too, even though he did get some ownership, was direct leverage off of Alvin Kamara for tournaments and stuff like that. What the Sims were trying to do is they're trying to get you leverage in these tournaments, off the chalkier options. And how do you do it? Well, it's through the passing game with a guy like Olave. This week doesn't really present that to you too much. But obviously, it still makes sense. I think 6,400 for Olave is a good price, though.
Yeah.
He's like the primary guy.
From a betting standpoint in this game.
Yeah. The Minnesota Vikings secondary, we all know it. It's not great. It just becomes tough when we're talking about just standalone pieces and stuff. Yeah. And this is a dome. He's still got a decent quarterback. He can still catch a touchdown. But obviously on the Saints front, I think I'm staying away from any complete stacks on that side. On that team.
They're both chucking it. I mean, they're going to throw it 30-something times. So
I look at this. I look at you. You're going to be buying into some Dobbs, Hawkinson stacks.
I probably will. Now that I look at Dobbs' numbers in Saberson a little bit more, might throw one in there with Addison.
Well, the best part was, man, Goen said, guess which quarterback I'm on that's going to have no ownership. And I guessed 7 quarterbacks before he finally told me it was Josh Dobbs. That's how gross of a play I initially thought it was, but you can be sold on it a lot. Moving on to the next game. It is the Green Bay Packers and Pittsburgh Steelers. It's one of the grosser games in the slate, Snyder. You don't have anyone completely taking up the ownership boxes except for one guy who I did not expect it to be. Najee Harris is projected for teens ownership. 16% ownership, Aaron Jones at 13, and then it ticks down completely. Obviously, the Steelers' secondary at times has been really bad this year. However, the Packers' passing game this year has been really inconsistent. It's tough to attack this Pittsburgh Steelers secondary in any way. Are you going to be buying this Najee Harris chalk at 16%? I know we talked about it last week with it being a shorter pool, right? It's only 10 games. There's only so many running back options. Najee Harris does feel cheap at 4,900, but that seems like high ownership on a guy who's really done nothing this season.
The problem is with Najee, let me check my notes. He sucks. I think Jaylen Warren's better. Stole a bit from Wiley there. But, they're playing half and half snaps. If Najee Harris is going to be chalky, like 15% plus more, I can't play him. I think his ceiling was last week. If he gets 15, 16 points, I think that's about the ceiling. That's about what he's been putting up for a high over the last couple of years. I actually think Jaylen Warren is like the workhorse there. I think he's got more pop in his step, but they just won't kind of turn him loose there yet. But I think Warren's got the higher upside. He scored 14 last week. Harris scored 16. They're going to split work again. I think it's just a tough spot to pick who gets the touchdown there. So most likely I'll be off of there. I think Deontay Johnson's going to see some ownership too. I think he could be over 15% as well this week. He's been really getting the targets there, and he finally found the end zone last week for like the first time in 2 years or something. So maybe he's got a little something to work on there. 6, 14, 9 targets since coming back. 7 for 90 and a touchdown last week. He had 8 for 85 last week. I think I'll project Deontay for probably around like 15 points and see how much he hits and stuff. But I think Deontay's fine. This is kind of one of those spots with the Steelers, though. You love to target the Steelers and play them when they're a dog on the road. Tomlin kind of plays up to that. But when they're a favorite, they actually kind of lay over a lot. Tomlin's got a really bad record as a favorite, but a great record as an underdog. So I think that's something to kind of take into consideration there. But got a low total here. I don't really expect too much fantasy outcome in this game, but I think you could play some one-offs in this game. If Harris is going to be that popular, I'll probably just be off of him there and maybe just play some Deontay as a one-off. I wouldn't mind playing either of these defenses, though. I think both of these quarterbacks can definitely turn the ball over and force some turnovers there. Maybe a pick 6 or something for either of these defenses is definitely in the cards, I think, in this game.
Yeah, 100%. These defenses can absolutely be in the cards with how erratic both the quarterbacks have been. Steelers defense does come in a little pricey at 3,800. Even the Packers at 3,400 compared to last week when felt like the Browns defense was like a smash play at only 4,200. These prices seem to be a little bit inflated. I did read a tweet. I don't know who it was from, Drew, but Deontay Johnson has been one of the best wide receivers for PPR scoring over the last 4 or 5 weeks, I should say. It might be 3 or 4. 5,400. It's not bad at all. Are you interested in him at under 10% ownership and anyone else from this game that you're looking to target?
I'm kind of with Snyder. I think his ownership actually creeps up into the low teens. So, probably monitor that a little bit. I think Sabres being a little bit generous that he's going to be 7 or 8%. But yeah, if he was down there, I would definitely have some interest. And I think it's mostly one-offs in this game anyways. The total is 37, 38. It's not really a great game to target from a stack perspective. And ironically enough, for the short total, the running backs are only going to be the ones, for the most part, besides Deontay, if he gets up there, are really the only ones getting ownership, which is kind of funny. So Obviously, Najee is pretty cheap. Jalen Warren obviously is a real concern. And then Aaron Jones from Green Bay is going to get some ownership. So I think this might be a stay away spot for me, to be honest. I maybe take some wide receiver spots. You talk about Deontay, you talk about George Pickens. Maybe that's it. And the running backs in a 38-point total, I'm not really thrilled with. That might just be a defense spot. And 3,800 is expensive, but this might be the 33-point game that we need. We need a pick and two picks and like a return for a TD. But yeah, I'm kind of low on this game in general. I think the running backs being overowned is a big red flag.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm really surprised to see the ownership, especially on a guy like Najee Harris, who is completely in a timeshare. I mean, there's no way around it. And and it surprised me. Maybe, we talked about how Deontay maybe is being underprojected. Maybe Najee Harris being overprojected, right? However, it's still notable. I haven't checked other sites other than Saber on their projected ownership, but they've been pretty reliable up to this date, especially this year. So maybe you see it just slightly inflated on Saber, but I'm still shocked. No one else is really getting any ownership at all. Aside, obviously, Deontay Johnson. Now, you guys mentioned that his ownership probably creeps up a little bit. No huge weather concerns in Pittsburgh. I know it's a November day in Pittsburgh. Maybe there'd be maybe there's weather. There's not. Still going to be an okay day, a good day for football, to be honest, as you're ever going to get in Western PA. But yeah, I'm with you. I don't think there's any reason to force it. I talked about it how at the start of the show. There's a lot of games that you can make a case for. And I just don't think that's one of them. And, why not make a 10-game slate, a 9-game slate, and kind of eliminate it from that regard? I could easily see myself crossing that one.
I mean, it's the lowest total on the slate, right?
Oh, it's got to be, right?
Yeah.
Every other game.
Close. There's one other game really close, but this one's down there with them.
Yeah, the other game is because of one team. Definitely not both teams. And we'll go ahead and get to that one a little bit later. But for now, we're going to move on to a very popular game this week. The Houston Texans and the Cincinnati Bengals. Obviously, last week, if you won tournaments on DraftKings and FanDuel, you had a 4-man stack even of the Houston Texans. Stroud, Noah Brown, Tank Dell, Dalton Schultz, obviously all going off. It was leverage off a very chalky Devin Singletary as well. It was a perfect tournament construction team, right? You were going away from the super chalk cheap running back, and you're jamming the passing attack and a passing funnel against the Tampa Bay Bucs. This week, they get a much tougher matchup. However, it's still going to be up-tempo, and the chalk isn't necessarily on the team that just won some people major money last week, including our own Big T winning $150K last week as well. No, it's on the Cincinnati Bengals side with T. Higgins out. You're seeing 4 Cincinnati Bengals above 20% and potentially 5 with Tyler Boyd. That is Trent Irwin, Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon is one of the top projected running backs this slate, and he's only 6,200. Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd, and Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow's ownership on a quarterback is the highest I have seen this season so far on a projected sheet. Obviously, the 10-game slate has a little bit to do with that. On the Texans side of the ball, you are seeing some very popular running backs with Tank Dell, Devin Singletary, Noah Brown, Dalton Schultz. This seems, I haven't checked the other games, but this seems like it will be the highest owned game on the slate. Snyder, what are you doing with these guys? And are you going to be eating the chalk or are you going to be fading it?
This is an interesting spot. The Bengals are coming off that big win against the Bills last week, and they're traveling to the Ravens on a short week next week on Thursday. This is kind of one of those potential letdown spots. I think we could see them coming out maybe a little flat, maybe looking a little bit ahead. I know that the Texans aren't any world beaters or anything, but they're decent. We got a good total though in this game, 47. Generally, we look for totals around 46 to 47. They've been historically on the Millie Maker teams and such when those games shoot out, but I like the values in this game more. I think I'll try and jam some Chase in though for sure. I just don't think I can get to Mixon. If Mixon's going to be, upwards of potentially 30, 35% in some of these contests, I don't think I can eat that chalk there. I don't think he can bury me unless he does put up that 55 spot like we saw last year. But I think the range of outcomes for Joe Mixon this week is probably in that 14 to 18 point range. And I don't think that's going to kill me this week. I think they're going to kind of spread the ball around like they have been. Maybe we see Mixon put up 20. If Mixon puts up 20 at 6'2", at 40%, that's definitely not going to bury you or limit you from I I don't think that I'll even get him on the optimal lineup, to be honest with you. So I think it's fine fading him there. I do like these receivers, though. I know Burrow's going to be a very popular QB option, one of the top 2 QB options of the week, I think. And you can pair him up with one of these 3 guys. I mean, you can almost run a triple if you wanted to. I mean, the pricing sets up for that there. I don't know if the points will be there to pay off the triple there, but I think Trenton Irwin's fine at 3K. I think he's a great punt play there if you need the salary there. He's had some decent games in the past where he's shown a little upside. Against the Cardinals, he had 8 catches for 60 yards. If he gets you 14 points again at 3K flat, I mean, you're sitting very, very well there. And then Tyler Boyd, I actually kind of like playing Tyler Boyd every here and there, mainly more for like showdown slates and stuff, but 4-6 is fine for him. If he could put up 20 points somehow, you're definitely sitting well. But I think I would project Boyd probably around maybe 14 points or something like that. I don't think he really puts up 20 or anything, but I think he should put up in that 12 to 15 point range. I think that's pretty comfortable for him there. So I think he's fine. And then Chase has got the ceiling there. We've seen the ceiling often from him. I mean, he's put up 55 himself this year even. Last year he had some games over 30. He's going to be the general focus here. I think he sees double-digit targets here. He's seen that in 3 of his last 4 games. Last week he was slowed down a little bit due to injury there. It looks like he's going to be fine, though. It's just a bruise, they're saying. So I could also see the Bengals kind of getting up here, too. If they get up like 10 or 14 points, I could see them trying to just kind of coast through this game to get through next week. Next week's a huge game, potentially. I mean, if the Ravens can win this week and then beat the Bengals next week, that basically cinches up the division for them. But the Bengals are still there fighting for the division themselves. If Baltimore loses this week, I mean, that's going to be a massive game next week.
Yeah, 100%. And you bring up an important point there, too. I mean, you're going to have 3 extremely chalk wide receivers, right? Jamar Chase heading a 55 piece himself against Arizona. But in that same game, this is what we had with the sample with T. Higgins when he was out earlier this season. Trenton Irwin got 10 targets in that game, went 8 for 60, right? Boyd himself ended up playing really well. In that same game, he did 6 for 39 and 7 targets and stuff. You have 3 really good options here on the Bengals side of the ball. And Drew, feel free to take an extended amount of time here because this is one of the most important games on the slate to talk about because Joe Burrow, I don't think I've seen a higher owned quarterback or projected ownership on a quarterback this season on DraftKings alone. 23% is sky high. And I want to know what your thoughts would be in the Millie Maker. A guy who he's gotten his mobility back over the last couple of weeks. He obviously looks a lot more spry than what he did at the beginning of the season with the calf injury. But a guy who I think he can be outscored by other quarterbacks on this slate.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely could. I have a couple of talking points. I'll start with I'll get to Joe Burrow here in a second. I'll start with Joe Mixon. So I watched the game last week, so I had a good bit of Joe Mixon. I think Chase was going to be super popular after the big game, like the week before or 2 weeks before. And they're just not using Mixon from like a big upside perspective. Like they're really giving him runs right into the defensive line, and they're getting like 2 yards, and that's it. They're not doing a lot of dump offs. They're not giving a lot of short throws. Like he got there 2 weeks ago because he got a 2-minute warning, fourth quarter touchdown. Like he's just not being used properly for him to warrant being 30% owned. So I'm with Snyder. I think Mixon's a guy. I'm gonna be cautious. Like he got jammed in last week, and I watched the game, and I was not very, very happy with how they used him. It looked like Joe Burrow, and this is probably goes to the point of him being pretty popular. I mean, the dude's he's just throwing it. I mean, Chase wasn't open in their first two runs down the field, and he was still chucking it quite a bit. He wasn't getting any type of safe runs or safe dump off. So I think that goes to the point of Burrow being super popular. He's projected for like 40 pass attempts or 39 pass attempts. It's up there, and he's got really good wide receivers. I think if Chase gets covered really well, he has other ways to get the ball down the field. You mentioned Trenton Irwin being really cheap, Tyler Boyd being very cheap. So I think the obvious route is to play one of the wide receivers. If it's Jamar Chase, that's probably logical. But if you play some of the cheap guys, you're going to want to pair him with Burrow and get the upside for those guys getting a TD or getting a 100-yard bonus or something like that. But yeah, it's really just the Cincinnati side. Obviously, the Houston side. I struggle to go back to these guys, and they're not really that high owned, which is disappointing a little bit. But I'm not going to go back to the guys that won. I mean, honestly, 4 guys that won the Millie Maker last week. So it's really the Cincinnati guys. Mixon will probably be out. I'll throw Burrow in there. I think he's still fine. Like, relatively speaking, 20% owned for a QB in a really good spot is still not that bad. I mean, we see worse positional scarcity at like 40% owned, and they get played. So I think Burrow's fine. Trenton Irwin's cheap. Chase is obviously in a really good spot. And then Tyler Boyd's another guy you can throw to. So I would just pair two receivers with Burrow, and that's probably it for me. So I don't know if that answered your question, but my biggest red flag is Mixon. I mean, Mixon being 30% owned, I would not pair him with Joe Burrow. Like, I just don't think I honestly think there's like a lack of correlation this season with them two. They're not working well together from what I could see.
No, I think you hit the hammer on the nail there, right? I think it's perfectly put. Making sure you're not pairing the popular running back with the popular quarterback and just trying to blanket. That's a cash approach, right? Oh, I want exposure to the Cincinnati offense. They got a 27-point team total. But you bring up a great point about Burrow, right? 40 passing attempts is the projection, right? Then they throw it 50 times last week against the Bills, and they didn't really need to do that, right? Like, in terms of the offense flowing, I think that's the exact way it should be ran by Zach Taylor. They should throw the ball as much as they can, get these skill players out in space. That's the way the Cincinnati Bengals should play football. And you get a pace-up spot against the Texans here. As a Bengals fan, I just didn't want to come off as front of like, oh, you got to jam these Bengals in and stuff. But I want to jam these Bengals in. Like, I want to jam 2 wide receivers with Burrow as the there, and I don't even need a run back from the Texans at all, because I think a lot of people are trying to buy. You said that they're not as high owned as you think. I still think that it was almost 20% ownership on Tank Dell with Robert Woods being back. So we got Nico Collins out. That is an important thing to mention here, because Nico Collins being out, you're going to have Robert Woods step into that same role. If you did feel compelled to do a run back, I mean, this isn't a bad spot for a guy like Devin Singletary. He was the main back last week, without a doubt, even with Damian Pierce out. Tank Dell's been just a stud this season ever since he got away from Clayton Tune in Houston and then actually went to the NFL team in Houston. He's done really well with Stroud. And then Noah Brown. I don't hate it at all. The Bengals struggle against Titans with Dalton Schultz. So if you're looking the full game stack, it's chalk. So make sure you're getting different elsewhere. I think that's the most important thing. It's okay to eat chalk, but make sure that you're getting different elsewhere in other games where you're not just doing a whole cash single entry, fest, right? You're trying to win $1 million at the end of the day when you're entering these contests, and especially into the Millie Makers. So just have that mindset where if you're jamming the Bengals in, make sure you're getting different elsewhere. But I'm with you guys. I'm going to be buying 3K Trenton Irwin. Salary seems very important on this slate. It's not like last week where you're not really getting much by playing a 3K guy, right? Everyone could have fit the stud running backs or whatever. You had a bunch of running backs projecting the same range from 6K to 8K. This week, it feels different. I think you need the value. I think one way to get different and stuff, too. We had a guy mentioned in the chat here. Who was it? Yosivas. My guy, Yosivas. He has a nice rapport with Burrow. That's getting really deep, too. That's direct leverage off Trenton Irwin. Both mid-price wide receivers, both maybe getting a bigger role. Obviously, more people are going to feel way more comfortable with Trenton Irwin because in the game that T. Higgins missed and the Bengals were back to being the Bengals, Trenton Irwin had 10 targets. So, I mean, it makes sense logically, but if you're looking for a guy with 2 touchdown upside or whatever, Yosivas has been a guy who's been very popular for Burrow, especially in the red zone. But yeah, I think that sums up the game. I think you guys did a great job. Let's move on to the Browns and Ravens. So, Snyder, your Ravens are taking on the best defense in football, the Cleveland Browns. The highest ownership pieces here are the defenses. It is the Browns defense at 7%, and it's the Ravens defense at 7%. And then it's a steep drop all the way down to David Njoku at 2% owned. Lamar Jackson.
We can move on.
Yeah, I cannot believe how many.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
This was the game I was talking about. I wasn't talking about the New York Jets game or the New York Giants game.
I thought you were talking about the Giants game for sure.
No. I mean, the Giants is a bad side, but this was the second worst spread, I think, or the second worst total, I believe.
Yes, 100% is. I'm looking at it on paper. So, Snyder, you saw last week, Keaton Mitchell has finally arrived. He has dealing with a little bit of a hamstring injury. But whenever the Ravens drive down the field for the last 2 weeks, it's been the Gus Edwards show. Gus Edwards just jams it in, takes away my touchdowns, and then I cry because I stack Lamar on FanDuel because he's always too cheap over there, and yet I play the same game over and over again. Maybe I don't have to do that this week against the Browns. Can you give any sell on this game from any player with everyone projected for low ownership?
It's been wild. Like the last 2 weeks, I think they put up like 68 points the last 2 weeks. And I think Lamar only has 1 touchdown in those 2 games, which is wild. I think the Ravens are going to show up here. I was actually surprised to see the spread that high. And I'm actually seeing some sharp action on the Ravens coming in. The spread's up to 6.5 now. If it gets to 7, I think they could dust them again. I mean, they played them a few weeks ago, beat them 28-3. This Browns defense is good, but they've given up some big games in the last few weeks. So, I mean, they let the Colts put up 38 on them. The Ravens put up 28. The Niners scored a decent amount. The Seahawks put up 24 on them. And then last week, I mean, the Cardinals were just in a horrible spot there. They didn't score, but this defense has been a little vulnerable. I don't think anyone's going to go there for the Millie Maker table and for the Millie Maker team or something. I mean, you can get Lamar at 1%. You can get Mark Andrews at 2%, 1% probably. I mean, you can throw Odell Beckham in there again at 3,800. He's been getting some good looks in the goal line situation. Their red zone targets have been there for Beckham. He found the end zone last week. He didn't hit the optimal, but he scored 16 points last week. I mean, that's a strong effort from him. The targets have been there for Beckham. 5 for 56 last week. 2 red zone targets. He's been getting at least 1 red zone target in the last 5 games. So I think he's interesting for tournaments as like a punt option there at 1%. I don't think I'm going to go crazy with this game, but I will have a little bit of exposure to the Ravens here just because, I mean, it doesn't take literally nothing to get overweight on them. You play Lamar like 5% in your 150 or something, you got 5x the field there. I mean, the upside that he brings is uncapped on this slate especially. So I don't think he's a great play, like a jamming in play, like a 3-max play. Definitely not. But for the Millie Maker, I think this is a spot where the Ravens put up 28, 35 points on these guys again. You can see Lamar or Mark Andrews, some of these guys, 4 or 5 touchdowns. I don't think Mitchell's going to be too active in this game. He's kind of limited here. I mean, the dude's so explosive, though. I mean, back, you probably watched him last year. We watched him at ECU. I mean, the dude just was so explosive there when he gets in the open field. I mean, the big knock on him coming into the NFL was he's small and little or something they were saying. But, I mean, the dude's like 5'8". He can run super fast, get him in space. I mean, I don't know if this is the spot to play him, though, at 4-7. I think maybe on Thursday here in a few days to get him on that showdown slate. I think he'll be a pretty solid option there in that game at home against the Bengals. But nothing overwhelmingly here. I do think that the Ravens defense is fine here at 4K. I mean, you got to spend up for him, though. But Deshaun Watson's definitely can make some mistakes. I mean, this Ravens defense has been playing lights out lately. I mean, they're getting to the quarterback. They've got 5 interceptions the last 4 games. They're really not allowing many points, 3 points, 6 points, 16, 17, 3. I mean, the defense has actually showed up to play well. So I think they're fine if you want to get up there for the defense at 4K.
Yeah, 100%. And Drew, do you have kind of blanket covered there. I think we did a good job. Do you have any interest in this game that I might not be seeing?
I'm gonna be the opposite. I'm gonna be a little bit more interested in Cleveland. I think the highest owned outside the defense is it Deshaun? Might be a wide receiver.
And Njoku.
Okay, and Njoku, what up? 5%?
Yeah, they're really
4%?
low.
2.
Yeah, so like the entire offense is gonna be like 6% total owned. So I mean, Deshaun Watson just put up 18 points last week against Arizona. In week 1, he put up 21 points. In week 3 against Tennessee, put up 21 points. I think people will probably miss out. It's not quite like a Houston spot last week, but like, I mean, these guys are just so low owned and there's still like upside that this game could shoot out. Baltimore's defense has had holes. And I think Cleveland, obviously, with the offense that they have and Deshaun Watson coming back, I think there's an opportunity that this could get to be a pretty fast paced game. So like I said, Deshaun Watson with Amari Cooper, Elijah Moore's pretty cheap at 3,600. I would probably try to get Deshaun with one guy. Who you like, Snyder?
I don't think you just want. I think Watson's just too thin here in this spot. I mean, there's only been one quarterback that scored over 15 points on the Ravens defense this whole year, and that was wildly enough, it was Dobbs in Arizona there in that letdown spot after that game against the Lions, where they got up and smoked the Lions, traveled cross country. They looked a little sleepy in that game, but I just think that's too thin on this spot. I could be wrong though. But,
it could be. I mean, sub 1% of the Millie Maker seems.
Yeah, I mean that's just like Lamar
to
playing at 5%. You got 5x the field, and it's all good.
Yeah, I mean, you can take both sides of this game. I think, like you said, I think the spread actually should be closer than what it looks like. It could be a complete dud game on both sides, to be honest. But like the Cleveland side has had an opportunity over the season to put up some points, and that's kind of what I look for. So like the opportunities there. I mean, Deshaun Watson's chucking it. He can get it on the feet as well. And Amari Cooper he still had upside, man. What has he had? 20
Amari
points
Cooper's
in week
definitely
3.
got the upside.
Yeah, so like I said, I just think that this whole Cleveland offense is super low, and they're expected to get blown out by Baltimore, and that's the opportunity that I look for. Where everyone thinks one outcome can happen, and obviously there's many outcomes, and some of them are somewhat muddled. And like I said, Cleveland, I'm really not excited about this game in general, anyways. But like the Cleveland side just seems so low owned, it's kind of egregious that I definitely want to have some exposure. But overall, I don't really want exposure to this game. But that's the side that's most enticing to me is like 1%, sub 1% is like nothing, right? Like 10% is a pretty good amount in the Millie Maker. Sub 1% is literally nothing. Like there's so many other combos you can match with sub 1% plays. So like I said, I just think the Cleveland side is going to be underowned, and there's still a very wide range of outcomes that are not being probably accounted for, I think, in the projections.
Yeah, 100%. I think you guys did a good job covering it all over. I think the one thing I always say is that if you can get Lamar under 5%, you're probably doing something right. However, I will save my Lamar fandom for next Thursday going against the Bengals. I think just so many good quarterback spots for a little bit cheaper, and just overall across the board, I'm really excited about the quarterback position more than others too. So won't be taking my Lamar risk this week, despite logic saying, one of the best quarterbacks for fantasy football, who has been running really bad on touchdowns, going to be under 1% owned. It's projected. Definitely not the worst thing in the world to think about. All right, so the next game, 49ers and the Jacksonville Jaguars. This game has a really good total. 49ers defense has not been as stout as they have been of late. However, it is week 10, and that means that their bye was on week 9, if I remember anything from my best ball days, is that Brock Purdy and the gang are going to be well rested. With the 49ers back healthy, we get Deebo Samuel's return this week too, which is a big deal. Brandon Ayuk is 900 more than Samuel, but the ownership on this team in general just isn't all that high. The highest projected owned player on the 49ers is Christian McCaffrey, and rightfully so at 19%. All the others are under 10%. Then when you flip it over to the Jacksonville Jaguars, you get Evan Ingram, Travis Etienne Jr., and Christian Kirk, all projected for 10% or more, with Ingram topping out at 22% owned. Snyder, what are you doing with the popular pieces of this game? And you did mention that you're a big McCaffrey guy this week, right?
Yeah, I think the bye came at just the absolute perfect time for this 49ers team. I mean, they started the season out great. The wheels kind of went off the roads there for a while, losing 3 straight games. 2 of them were on the road. They had, I think they had a hard reset there. I think Shanahan's definitely going to come with a game plan here, a really good one. I think the 49ers are going to roll over the Jaguars here. I know Jaguars are kind of everybody's trendy pick now with the hot start. I think Shanahan and the 49ers are going to roll into town and remind people that they are one of the better teams in the NFC this week and potentially a favorite to win the NFC. So I really like the Niners to roll here. I'm going to be overweight on McCaffrey. I'm really not excited to roster any of these chalkier running backs that are kind of in average spots. I think McCaffrey's definitely got the highest slate on the slate that we've seen for the last however many years he's been in the league. But he's got one game over 50 already this year. I think he's going to be used heavily in the rushing and passing game this week. I expect him to find the end zone once again. I can't remember how many straight games he's been in the end zone, but it keeps going. The record keeps going. Each week he finds the end zone. So love McCaffrey at 9-2. I'll pay up there. I'll get different else, or I'll find some salary elsewhere. So McCaffrey is definitely going to be one of my main building blocks of the week. And then we got a Jaguars defense here that plays zone defense mainly, and that means one thing. It means time to load up the Deebo Samuel this week. So definitely going to be overweight on Deebo here. I think the Niners roll in this game. Like I said, I think they put up 28, 35 points in this game. So definitely want some exposure to this offense, mainly in Deebo and McCaffrey, but Love this spot for them. Even the 49ers defense at 3-6, I think that's a fair price. I think they're going to have a hard reset here and come out more motivated, and I think they're going to roll here. So I like the defense as well to pair up with McCaffrey there. And then on the Jaguars side, I think ETN's fine play there. I mean, the dude just gets so much volume in both the avenues there. And then we got Calvin Ridley still low priced. I think he's fine if you want to throw him in as a run back at 5'6". He's cheaper than Christian Kirk now by 400, which is kind of wild after the start of the season when they were that far apart. But mainly just McCaffrey. I want to be well overweight on him this week, and then I want to jam in some Debo here against this zone defense.
No, I like that case with Debo. And obviously with Debo's injury, he missed, 3 or 4 games basically, right? He's been out since week 6, has basically played like 1 quarter, and then he dipped out, right? Since then, I think he's a full go, right? It was a shoulder injury. He's going to be good to go. I like that call a lot at 6,200. He's been a guy who's gotten over 20 twice this season, Drew. And only 6 games, 5 games really, 5 full games and stuff. Are you going to be buying any Debo? And this game in general, I mean, this game seems like it could be really nice. The weather is a very slight concern. It seems like it's going to be a little bit windy at times, but shouldn't be enough to really dictate. I mean, the total's still high. I've always been told if you see the total dropping, weather becomes a concern, but it's stayed about the same mostly for the last 24 hours or so. So nothing too big of a deal.
Yeah, to me, it's really just the focus on Christian McCaffrey. I think Debo is a fine play at 6,200. I still think it's going to be split across Ayuk, obviously Debo Samuel, Christian McCaffrey is still getting a decent number of targets. So I struggle with like the Ayuk and Debo Samuel with Debo Samuel coming back because do like Ayuk quite a bit. He's super fast. I mean, the dude gets down the field and he's always open. It's just a matter of Purdy finding him and getting a pass to him. But for me, it's really McCaffrey at 9,200. I think he's the smash spot in this game. There's a couple of decent plays. I just don't think that even if San Francisco rolls, I'm not sure they roll into like the 30-point territory. I think it's just like a comfortable lead that they just kind of hold on to. And I think the way they get that lead is through McCaffrey in red zone targets or red zone rushes. And that's really it. So like for me, I'm kind of biased, but I really do think it's just McCaffrey's game. At 9,200, he's like probably the best spend up in the entire slate. And outside of that, in this game, it's just a lot of question marks. I mean, the game could go a lot of different ways, obviously, but I'm not so sure that like they roll and this game gets like so fast paced. We're seeing like 30-point scores. So I'm really just going to lean into McCaffrey, and that's it.
Yeah, fair enough. I do want to mention, just watching this team, I think the 49ers were a team that needed to buy the most out of anyone. Obviously, it's easy to say that when, 3 straight losses for them, which was never really the case for a team in San Francisco like that. But a team coming off a bye, heading from West to East Coast, not a huge deal, I think, coming off the bye too. I do think, I'm with you, Snyder. I think the 49ers respond really well. I think this defense kind of comes back to a little bit of the norm of what we've become to expect of them over the last few years and stuff. I'm with you. I think you guys hit it with McCaffrey, kind of focus on him. It's been 17 straight games, if I remember right, from the Bengals, because he scored for the 17th straight time against the 17th straight time in a game. A touchdown. Wow, that was a mouthful against the Bengals. So he's going to be trying to make it 18 there. Obviously, his touchdown odds are just always insane. It's like minus 210 or minus 250 that he gets into the end zone. And tomorrow's going to be no different. He's still going to be an absolute beast and definitely one of the best fantasy players just out there. Fantasy plays out there. I don't really think I have anything to add too much. Brock Purdy is not owned as high as I thought he'd be with his weapons back. I do think at 5.7K, it's worthy of a look. I talked up Josh Dobbs at 5.5 earlier, but Purdy is 5.7 at 5% ownership with Debo Samuel back in the lineup. Trent Williams should be back fully healthy too at the left tackle position, which has definitely hurt this offense and just hurt this team in general. So I'd be buying Purdy just a bit as well. But other than that, you guys summed it up perfectly. And I think
Purdy's like a really good real life quarterback, actually. And I think fantasy wise, he struggles to get there, man. Like I actually do like Purdy from a quarterback standpoint. He's been impressive in some of the showdown slates.
I really like him. I think really like his game.
Last year, when he came in last year, late in the season, dude, I mean, I don't know. Just certain guys just have like the way they go about their business. And he just seems like super mature for being a young dude in a quarterback position in the NFL right now. For not being like a star, like not like a Joe Burrow, right?
Oh,
so
yeah.
I don't know. I do like Purdy. He just doesn't seem like the fantasy type just yet.
Do you want to see?
He puts up like 20 or 25 points, and then you look at you like, how did he do that? I mean, he just always puts up like 20 fantasy points. You're like, how did that happen?
Well, you know how he did it last time.
He's a good real life quarterback. He's not putting up like the 30 that you think is like gonna pop off some like the Deshaun Watson. I'm not gonna hype up Deshaun Watson anymore, but like Deshaun could throw up 32, and like that's not really that surprising. Purdy throws up 32. It's like, dude, where did you get that from? So yeah, he's a good dude from a game perspective though, and he's I think he's pretty good for San Francisco right now.
Absolutely. And now we got another game between the rookie sensation. No, it's not Bryce Young. That was Thursday night. Oh, he's not a sensation either.
Oh,
it's not CJ Stroud. No, it is Will Levis, the absolute stud. A guy who looks like he's just belonged in the NFL in his first 2 games. And his pocket presence against the Steelers was pretty impressive. And now he gets a pass funnel in the Tampa Bay Bucks with Vita Vea back. The Tampa Bay Bucks have turned back into that pass funnel that we have been accustomed to over the past few years. Obviously, that turned out to be the case with Devin Singletary last week, right? If you were jamming Devin Singletary chalk, you had a bad time because CJ Stroud and the gang just absolutely wrecked it. This week, you're going to get the opportunity to go with, Will Levis, maybe another rookie quarterback coming in at 5.3K. Clear stacking options. It looked like he just kept on targeting DeAndre Hopkins in both games. Obviously, they didn't throw it a ton 2 games ago, but against the Steelers, DeAndre Hopkins was his first look. And obviously, not a whole lot of other stacking options becomes the issue. DeAndre Hopkins is the only Titan projected for double-digit ownership. And when you flip it over to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, it's a surprising name up top. I guess not too surprising. I keep saying this is surprising for a running back. However, 10 games, the pool is kind of thin. 5,800 Rachaad White is approaching 20% ownership. Snyder, what do you know with the 2 most popular plays, and are you interested in Will Levis by any means tomorrow?
I think Levis is fine. I mean, 5,300. I mean, he definitely shows some upside there. He's got some moxie there. He kind of had a letdown against the Steelers. At the Steelers, that was a tough game to go into Pittsburgh there in prime time. He still looked all right. I mean, he was fine. He still threw for 262 yards. He just didn't really have the upside of the touchdowns that he did the first game, throwing for 0 versus 4. But I think this is a good spot for him. I think he could throw for a couple touchdowns here, 5,300. You can pair him up with his guy Hopkins there. He's up to 6K now, but I think I would kind of lean towards paying down at tight end and pairing him up with Chig at 3.0. I mean, Chig's been pretty consistent, hasn't had the blow-up game yet, but he's been consistently getting targets, getting catches. He's only scoring about 5 or 6 points a game, but if he gets into the box this week, puts up 13 or 14, I think that'd be good for you there at 3K. So I'm going to have a little bit of Chig in the pool. I'll probably have a little Levis in the pool. K. Dotton's still cheap, 3-4. I mean, Baker's been looking at him quite a bit. I didn't have the full game stack last week. I hate to say it, but I wish I did. But I did play a lot of Rachaad White last week. He was that running back I kind of went to for the cheaper guy. I mean, he was great last week, 5,800 this week. I think he could be 20 to 30% owned this week. Generally don't like to target running backs against Tennessee, but the majority of White's roles coming through that passing game. So I think he's fine here if you want to get to him. He'd be like a guy I'd play on my cash team. Maybe look to get a little bit different of in tournaments and such, but definitely I'll have exposure to White. Nothing really like I want to really stack up here. I guess you could, just looking at it now, we're still getting Chris Godwin at a decent price, 6.7. Mike Evans, 7.2. Like Big T's always said, you always want to leave like those guys like Mike Evans in the pool because they can just blow up for 35 plus points a couple times throughout the year. So that's something he hit on one of the shows earlier this week. So definitely leave Mike Evans in your pool there. Baker's fine at 5.1. I mean, I think I'd rather play Baker than some of those other guys. I think he's at least got a little bit of upside there. So I think you can get some options here for sure in this game.
Yeah, I think this game is going to have a lot more passing opportunities than it originally looks on paper. My one caution with Chig Okonkwo, despite being 3K, which is just fine, is that he had like 3 catches on the last drive alone. Other than that, he was completely goosing.
That was actually huge for me in Showdown.
He was completely goosing until he got those 3 catches on that final drive. However, He got those catches, right? And this is a pass funnel. This is a pass funnel for both teams, Drew. I mean, does it have a little bit more appeal than maybe it does on paper?
A little bit. I still lean Tampa Bay side. I was heavy on Tampa Bay last week, and unfortunately, only Rachaad White and K. Dotton got there, even though they scored 37 points or 39 points, whatever they got. 37 points. You think 37 points, guys like Mike Evans, Chris Godwin would get there, but yeah, it was all duds except for Rachaad White. So I want to go back to the passing game. Rachaad White will probably still be in the player pool, but I'm going to go back to Mike Evans, guys like Godwin with Baker Mayfield. That's really it for me. I just think they can still put up enough points, and Baker Mayfield likes to chuck it. So from the Tennessee side, to be honest, man, I think I'm going to sell on DeAndre Hopkins this week. I looked at him last week, and he was like 1% owned, and I don't know why, but I couldn't buy into it. I think there's some type of regression that will come back after 1 week. I'm going to sit this one out on the Tennessee side for the most part. And again, it's a little bit of like seasonal bias. You go through the seasons, the highs and the lows. You see guys like DeAndre Hopkins, and he's near min price, and you're like, I wonder if I should play him. He's going to be 1% owned. No. And then he goes off, and then you kick yourself in the nuts for it. So I'm going to sit this one out. And then as far as like Chig, like I just don't know why you don't play Cade at $400 more than Chig. Like Cade's getting good work volume. He's out there for like 100% of the snaps. I mean, he's out there all the time. So I just don't know why you wouldn't go to Cade at 3,400 instead of Chig at 3K. But yeah, for me, it's really just Baker Mayfield with Mike Evans. You're playing that regression on the guy going for 30 points. And Chris Godwin's fine at 6,700. But I think Evans is the guy. If you like played Evans every week with Baker Mayfield and certain number of stacks, I think you'll be pretty happy at the end of the year, because he's the only guy in this offense that really goes off what he does. Like he'll go for like 200 yards. Like 3 weeks of the season. So for me, it's really Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans. I'm kind of low in the game from the Tennessee side, but like I said, I'm going to have Rachaad White in the player pool. He's still in a good spot. He's still pretty cheap. So, and then K. Dotton, obviously at 3,400 is fine to pair with Baker Mayfield, or run him solo if you want. He's just cheap enough to do that.
Yeah, 100%. I'm going to go ahead and say that I will be buying the DeAndre Hopkins stock a little bit this week. I just think this Tampa Bay secondary got exposed pretty badly last week, and if the Titans do drop back a little bit more than what we expect, if the Tampa Bay Bucks jump out to an early lead, perhaps, or something like that, maybe this game becomes one of those mini shootouts where all of a sudden it's like 27-21 or something like that, where it's not a huge score, but the concentration of Tennessee's targets is just so clean. You get DeAndre Hopkins going to command 30% of the target. That's high, I know, but who else is going to catch the ball? I mean, Jake barely got targeted last week. Kyle Phillips, mid-price, 3K. Someone mentioned that in the chat. Caught a couple passes last week. He actually ended up being in the winner on Showdown. What was it, that Thursday night game last week against Steelers? So Westbrook-Ikhine, I mean, I just feel so confident that DeAndre Hopkins can get just such a large amount of targets against a terrible secondary that just got exposed, that 13% ownership doesn't feel like it's that bad. But he'd be the only guy that I feel like I'd be strongly buying in this game. The Atlanta Falcons and Arizona Cardinals. So we did just have Diana Rossini said, Chris from our guy Chris Ostro in chat, Bijan, more touches, and what should be a nutted spot. I do drink the devil's juice a little bit. I can't cap. I love coach speak. I love reading the tea leaves and stuff. And God, if you're gonna bait me with Bijan Robinson, more touches, I gotta buy it against the Arizona Cardinals, who have been one of the best matchups for running backs this season to date. And you also, in this same game, you get Trey McBride in the best spot for tight ends in the NFL, which is against the Atlanta Falcons. You have a couple spots here, and that's not even including Marquise Brown and the return of Kyler Murray. Obviously, Kyler Murray is back. You probably didn't do much film watching with the new Call of Duty dropping just this past week. However, he is back, and this offense should look much, much better than it did with Clayton too. Obviously, Russ could be there, for Kyler Murray, but 5,900. I'm not saying he's a great, play individually, but he does promote Trey McBride and Marquise Brown just a little bit, right? They got to be better plays. Dobbs was very serviceable. Hopefully that we get that same serviceableness with Kyler Murray, because these guys are all legitimate fantasy options. And those are the only three guys projected for ownership, except for the Cardinals defense, which is at 15% ownership at 2,500. Snyder, what are you doing with these popular pieces? And I did forget to mention, James Conner is back this weekend as well.
Yeah, that's interesting there. It'll be interesting to see how Kyler looks coming back from that long offset there. I think Kyler Murray is a horrible real-life quarterback, but he's a fine fantasy quarterback. So if you want to go there, that's fine. I don't know if I'll get there, though, but I'll probably play some of these pieces, though. I mean, Trey McBride, 3,500. It's going to be very, very, very highly owned, but he's in that spot that you just said, the nut spot this week. So definitely can't fade that for 3,500, so I'll have some exposure there. Marquise Brown was good with Kyler. That's someone that Kyler looked to early and often while he was playing. I think he's fine there. He's going to be popular, though, too, so it'll be kind of tough to gauge how to play these two guys. I don't know if you want to play them together just because you're going to be taking on potentially like 60% of ownership if you play them both together. So that'll be kind of tough. I think that's fine, though. I don't know if I'm going to overly get overweight on this game with all the popularity in this game. I don't know if I can trust. I don't think I can trust them with what they're going to do with Bijan and Tyler Algier. I mean, they're going to split work like they always do. It just comes down to who gets the goal line carries in the red zone work. Arthur Smith can say whatever he wants, but once he gets zoned into that game, I mean, all bets are out the window there. He could have Benji in there early in the game, and then Algier will be coming in late to tilt us all like we have seen all throughout the year. And then you got Kyle Pitts there, too. He's still with a decent price at 4-1. You got Jonnu at 3-6, who, I mean, it's like almost playing roulette with those two guys there, too. So, and this is just a tough game. I need to kind of look at this game more and maybe get some more opinions from the Morning Wood and that stuff tomorrow to kind of gauge how much I want to play this game, how do I want to attack it. But definitely I'll have McBride in the pool for sure. Probably have some Marquise Brown. I don't think I'll get to Kyler potentially, but I don't think – I mean, I'm kind of interested to see if Rondale Moore gets any traction here. I think Rondale Moore is an interesting million maker play there. 3K. He was the guy that popped off for a few games with Kyler last year. He's been getting a little bit of work. I mean, he's only gotten 10 points once in the last 5 weeks, but last year there were some games with Kyler where he went for 18 and 15. I think he's definitely viable for the million maker.
Yeah, and against this Atlanta Falcons offense, right, or defense, I should say, they defend the wide receiver position really well in terms of fantasy. But a guy who doesn't really profile as a normal wide receiver is Rondale Moore. He's been priced. We already have talked about Trent Irwin being really chalk. He's going to be approaching 30% ownership in some contests. And Rondale Moore as a gadget piece, and we got the comment here from Who's Watching What, talking about if Michael Wilson misses, right, that could just bump up Rondale Moore's status a little bit too. I don't hate that at all. But Drew, I need to know two things. I need to hear your Bijan take. And then I need to know, are you planning on spending down at defense, or with the Cardinals defense being projected around 15%, purely because it's a big salary saving move, right? And do you think that's the proper way to build this week?
I mean, I don't think punting defense has really worked out very well this season, so probably not for me. I think the Sims have actually been really good of not doing that, to be honest. They've been very balanced and not just jamming in cheap defenses for 5-point projection and to get the higher ceiling wide receivers. It's been pretty balanced on getting defenses with pretty good matchups, which is ironic from a defensive perspective. But yeah, there's really just two pieces for me. It's Bijan, I'm probably not going to buy into. I think he's going to be a little bit overowned, and I still don't trust the workload from Atlanta to use Bijan properly. That's my take. But James Conner coming back for Arizona, I'm a big James Conner guy. I think he gets used really well, and then he gets hurt. And I like to use him when he's back. So James Conner for me, I think Trey McBride at 3,500 is a really good play. They've been using him properly. Obviously, he's filling the Zach Ertz role. Someone had mentioned earlier, I don't know if they were talking about McBride, but they said we were talking about the last game. Moving up $500 obviously would be $3,500 instead of Chig. I assume that's Trey McBride. So Trey McBride at 3,500 makes a lot of sense. James Conner. We talked about Kyle Pitts last week, right? I think we talked about Kyle Pitts. I had a little bit of him. We'll see. Yeah,
Rubio was giving me shit.
Rubio was? Yeah. I thought we had talked about him. He was playing the day. He was playing the day.
Yeah, the Falcons tight
He
end.
made some pitcher and everything.
It was a 60-yard touchdown for the Falcons tight end. You guys didn't see that?
I didn't. No. Is that the only points he scored?
Yeah, there it is, right there. Yeah, Jonnu Smith outscored Kyle Pitts, and I was very sad after seeing Jonnu Smith house a 60-yarder. It was definitely depressing, but Kyle Pitts did get over his receiving prop, which did help me out a little bit.
There you go. That's important. So yeah, I think this game obviously is not one I'm going to be targeting overly high. So yeah, it's really just James Conner, 5,900. I think he's going to be one of the lower owned running backs with like a decent ceiling, to score over 20 points. Bijan I'll be low on, and then Trey McBride at 3,500 I like quite a bit.
All right, perfect. And I'm going to go on my ramble here. I get one ramble a show.
We need
You already
it.
had one. You already had one, but
wait. Which one was the ramble? Which one?
I don't remember, but I'm pretty sure you had one early on. Oh yeah, it was. It was. Hang on a second. It was definitely a ramble. It was. It was
Dobbs.
It was Dobbs. Yeah.
I get two rambles a show. So
Rubio winners.
This ramble right here
We do
is
need the
sponsored
Rubio
by
winners, you're right.
Diana Rossini, who hilariously I heard in a conversation while I was on Fortnite today was about Diana Rossini. So the fact that we had Diana Rossini tea leaves dropped into this chat is a sign of good things. What I want to ask you guys, obviously Bijan Robinson has a bye week next week, right? Rookie running backs tend to perform much better after the bye. That's no secret. Do you want to be sitting here with Bijan Robinson at 6K for the last time of his career? This is the lowest you're ever going to see Bijan Robinson for the next 7 to 8 years. And you guys are going to say no against the Arizona Cardinals? If we are truly seeing a spike in snaps, I'm going to buy in. I don't want to be late on Bijan. That's the one thing I don't want to be in this world. I don't want to be late on Bijan Robinson. These tea leaves are falling for a reason. Arthur Smith is coming in fresh off a terrible loss last week against Jaron Hall and Josh Dobbs. Josh Dobbs playing backyard quarterback against them. I think they're going to be forced into playing Bijan Robinson a little bit more. And Arthur Smith might not have a say in this one. And that is why Bijan Robinson is someone I'm going to be buying a ton of stock in. I wish I had a graphic ready for that. That would have been a nice But moving on from this game to an extremely popular game, a game that has a ton of shootout potential too. It is the Detroit Lions and the Los Angeles Chargers. So we had a little bit of low ownership on this one just because of the pricing, right? When you look at the Bengals, you see a ton of players over 20%. This game is just as good of an environment. The Chargers secondary has been awful all year. The Lions offense has been pretty good and their defense has been inconsistent. This game profiles is something that could shoot out. Amon-Ra St. Brown is the highest projected owned player, and he is only at 15%. The next highest is Austin Eckler and Keenan Allen, both at 13 and 10%. This seems very low for a game with shootout potential like this. And I know pricing has a lot to do with it. All those guys that I just mentioned are above 8K. Laporta almost clocks double digits at 5,700. I like this game a lot. Jared Goff seems to be a really good quarterback option. But Snyder, what am I missing here? Why is this game not just super popular like I expected it to be?
Yeah, I'm surprised there as well. I think this is a great option here. We get a dome game here, two explosive offenses here. I really like St. Brown this week. I think he puts up 30, 35 points in this spot. I mean, he's been getting over 100 yards in 4 of his last 5 games. He's found the end zone a couple times, a little bit low on the TD variance. Maybe he finds the box a couple times this game. He's definitely going to see double-digit targets here, I think, in this game. So I think St. Brown is a guy I'm going to try and jam in as much as I can with like McCaffrey or something with all this value that we're going to have on this slate. So definitely want to be overweight on the Lions here. I think the Lions roll in this spot too. I'm not a big Chargers fan there, just basically off their coaching. I think they have the worst coach in the NFL, but Keenan Allen should be like, I don't see any way where he's like over 10% owned. So he's another guy. If you can afford it to stack this game up, I mean, I know he hasn't been great, but he's still catching 8 passes in the last couple games. He's at 8-8 and 9-10, 9-11 targets. He's going to see the volume. Nobody's going to play him. I think he's fine here. As I think they're going to absolutely have to lean on him here. We saw Quentin Johnson. I mean, that dude is just absolutely horrible. He hasn't translated to the NFL yet. And Austin Eckler's fine if you want to spend up there as well. I don't think he's going to see too much ownership. So I could go there. Just looking at Jared Goff, 6'4". That's a fair price tag there for him. And Jared Goff can put up 30 points and be under 5% owned. So I think the Lions is a good side here to target from tournaments. They're we've seen Goff put up 25, 30 points in that range 3 times this year. So I actually like the Lions here quite a bit against this Chargers defense that has definitely been beatable. They've been giving up fantasy points in abundance at times this year. So definitely like the Lions, and you can run it back with like an Eckler or Allen, I think.
Yeah, 100%. I do think, maybe I'm not accounting for David Montgomery being back and that being a split of the running back position. So those guys aren't going to carry much ownership of the running backs right there for the Lions. But I think, Drew, are you on the Lions side here as much as Snyder and I are?
Yeah, I like both sides. I think this game is underprojected from an ownership perspective. It's the highest total on the slate. I think you should probably just eyeballing these numbers, probably expect like a 25 to 50% bump up higher than what their ownership projection is. Again, like it's the highest total in the slate, and it's like the top 3 highest by a decent margin. So I think this game gets some ownership, but I think this is actually a really good game to target either way. Eckler, I want to go back to at 8,400 as a top spin up for a running back. Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to be 20% plus. I think he's fine to go back to at 8,300. Keenan Allen's a little bit expensive. That's the tough one for me. 8,800. I think obviously I always liken him to Mike Evans as far as the upside, and I'm down in Florida, so I have the Tampa Bay homer mentality. But like I do think Keenan Allen has that 30+ point upside. But at 8,800, it's tough for me to get to him when I could go play McCaffrey, who's probably going to score 30, almost on a floor. But like Amon-Ra St. Brown, 8,300 is still on the verge, and I like that. Sam Laporta, 5,700 is fine. It's up there, but I probably will play some Laporta. It's just a good game environment. It's approaching 50 points total. I won't play any of the defenses, but like I said, Eckler's probably one of my favorite running backs on the slate. He was like chalk last Monday or last Thursday for the showdown slate. Like I don't see how he doesn't come in way higher owned than he's projected, and I think he's one of the few that will stay under 15%. So Eckler's probably my favorite play from this game. But yeah, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Detroit side, Laporta, Jared Goff, totally fine. But I think the Chargers side is going to be under-owned a bit, and that's probably a good side to pivot to if you want to. But overall, I think this game's great to target. I just wanted to caution. I think it's going to be higher owned than what you are seeing.
Yeah, 100%. And I do want to mention you guys did a great job there. I don't want to take too much time up. We're already at 10:10. We're already an hour and 10 minutes into the stream. Amon-Ra St. Brown, one of my favorite plays this week, and I do like targeting this Los Angeles secondary. And I do think that Austin Eckler has been a guy who, whenever they get near the goal line, it's not like he's Gus Edwards or whatever. He's the exact opposite, some would say. But he still gets a lot of touchdowns inside the 5-yard line. So Eckler definitely has double touchdown upside too. So definitely don't mind stacking this one up one bit. Jared Goff, I'm with you, Snyder. I think that price tag, along with this matchup, could definitely be nice. Moving on from one good game to another. This game is good because both secondaries can be exposed. There's the Washington Commanders versus the Seattle Seahawks. Obviously, the Commanders have not had a great time in that secondary at all. And now we get a Seattle Seahawks team that is, by all means, underperforming this season. Geno Smith is projected for 13% ownership, but his wide receivers really aren't following suit in terms of that ownership. Geno is the second highest owned quarterback on the slate projected, only behind Joe Burrow. Tyler Lockett's projected for 16%, and DK Metcalf is under 10%. This is kind of surprising with a quarterback that chalk. Terry McLaurin is at 14%. He's the only Washington Commander above 10%. Do you like this game, Snyder? And do you like DK Metcalf? I know you were talking about him pre-show.
Yeah, I was actually kind of surprised to see the ownership projection on DK Metcalf. I was expecting him to be higher owned, but I guess after you see all these other guys, I mean, there's so many other guys that are taking up ownership that there's just not enough to go around. So maybe we get DK under 10% here, 6-8. I mean, the game log, if you look at that, maybe that'll keep some people away. He hasn't had like that huge eruption spot yet this year, like we saw last year a couple of times where he put up like 40 against the Niners that one game. Put up 30 against the Rams. Hasn't really done that yet this year. Only has one game over 20 points. But I think this is the spot that maybe we get that DK eruption here against this very, very beatable Washington defense. I mean, Geno should have all the time in the world here as Washington got rid of their two best pass rushers here. So 5,800 for Geno. I think Geno and Burrow are going to be the top two highest owned quarterbacks on the slate, which also makes it interesting why DK isn't seeing that much ownership. But I definitely like DK. It looks like Lockett's going to be about twice his own as DK, as I'm seeing on some spots here. But I prefer DK this week, even though he's $700 more than Lockett this week. So I'm going to be DK with Geno. Probably won't get to Kenneth Walker. Our guy Smith and Jigba in play if you want to go there for a larger field, like a million maker play. I think that makes a lot of sense. And then I'll probably go back to the guy I've been playing the last month or so, and a Dotson there. I'm going to go right back to him. He's found the end zone in his last 2 games. 69 yards and touchdown last week. He had 108 in a touchdown the week before. 18 targets in the last 2 games. So Dotson's definitely my preferred run back there. And if I want a different run back, or maybe if I just fully stack this game up, I have no issue putting Logan Thomas in there as well. He's still under 4K. He's definitely been a guy they've been going to a decent time here. So I think, what's that saying? Oh, I got you. Yeah, I mean, Carroll definitely loves to run the ball.
I hope it's a smoke screen. I don't see how you could just want to run the ball against Washington, especially.
He loves to run the ball, though. But I think Logan Thomas is fine. He's had over 7 points the last couple of games. A couple of spike weeks this year too. So if you want to run it back with Logan Thomas under 4K, I don't have any issues with that. But just kind of surprised. It'll be interesting to see if DK's ownership comes up or not. But just like I said, I mean, there's so many options here this week that are going to see ownership, so someone's got to get squeezed.
Yeah, and it looks like Curtis Samuel is going to play. I saw that in the chat too.
Oh.
I don't like what Pete Carroll said there, Drew. If that's true, that he's going to emphasize the run this week. I
don't trust Pete Carroll. I don't trust Pete Carroll.
Yeah, I don't trust Pete Carroll either. He seems like
coach speaks one thing. Pete Carroll's speak is very, very bad. So.
Yeah, he lied about Reggie Bush. Damn it, we can always rely on that. But Drew, what are you doing with this one?
Yeah, I mean it's a really good game. There's some obvious pieces. I'm fully with Snyder. I think Metcalf over Lockett's the play. You take the extra $700 to spend up to Metcalf. Geno Smith with Metcalf and Smith and Najigba. I think that's the perfect stack for tomorrow. Runbacks, McLaurin and Logan Thomas. Those are the only 2 from Washington I'm really interested in. I haven't been playing a lot of Dotson, so I can't be biased like Snyder, unfortunately. But yeah, I think Logan Thomas has been pretty solid. There's still some better spin downs, I think, with similar or more upside, possibly. But if you want to play the stack on Seattle, obviously you want some correlation running it back. I know Rubio will say the Sims don't agree with that, but I still do it. It just makes the most sense. I mean, if they're going to go score, the ball's coming right back the other way. I just don't know how that doesn't make sense, but computer science is smarter than I am, apparently. So, but yes, Seattle is primary stack, and then you run it back with one of the Washington guys, either McLaurin or Logan Thomas, and like I said, Metcalf over Lockett for me.
Yeah, no, I'm starting to come back your way. I know we had we talked about that earlier in the season and stuff. But yeah,
I mean, I think honestly, if you sim out the Millie Maker, they don't care about that. They're just looking for like literally one-offs. Like if just theoretically, if you had $1 million, size player pool of entries, like you wouldn't stack anybody. You're just looking for like the one-offs that get 30 points. So there is like a cutoff. You play in like the 40-man, yeah, you're going to stack everything. And you be playing a 1 million person contest, yeah, there's no stacking at all.
See, that's been the fine line. I'll talk about this. I know it's not a complete saver show or anything like that, but I've had much more success in fields under 10,000 than I have in large field tournaments. And that's something that I got to fix on my own game. And the Millie Maker is definitely
you'll watch the slider. It'll move if you.
I watch it all the time.
And I hate that. I hate that personally, but it makes the most sense. I mean, you could go to a far extreme of infinity entries, and you would not stack a single person. You would just take the one-offs everywhere that could get 35 points.
Yeah, 100%. So large field's a different animal, obviously.
Exactly. Exactly.
And we're at large field. Obviously, it was 5 players and the quarterback last week, right? It was Noah Brown.
It was. So that's a bad argument the week after. But generally speaking, the Sims want you to not stack a lot in the big fields.
Yeah, 100%. And that's where it becomes like a little bit of that, that balance, right? We can always talk about Saber on and on. If you guys want to get involved with Saber, you can get an awesome package with the Run Pure Sports content, 15% off with code NBA15. So make sure you get in. You can utilize the Sims and everything else in between, including their contest Sims, which I'm a huge fan of, that AP and I go over every Monday and Thursday for the Showdown slate. We have one game left. It is great for one team. It is bad for one team. Snyder, don't tell me you're interested in anyone on the Giants. Oh God, I can't hear any Tommy DeVito love. We can cry for Saquon Barkley, but this is a one team streak, and that team is the Dallas Cowboys. We get Tony Pollard at 7,300, a guy who has not really looked like himself and has been in a bunch of lopsided scripts this year and hasn't really succeeded. He is projected for 20% owned. CD Lamb, 8,500, despite a script not being completely in his favor. However, the one good thing about CD Lamb is that the last time they were blowing out a team early was the Los Angeles Rams, and they just kept on throwing the ball to him. He is projected for 18% ownership, and the last team projected for last player projected for 18% ownership is not just the player, it's the team. The Cowboys defense. Obviously 4,400, right? It's high price for a defense. It's a premium. However, the Browns defense last week was 4,200. They shut out the Cardinals and got 23. This Giants team is going to be terrible. The offensive line is horrible. Tommy DeVito is horrible. The only shining bright light is that you have rookies like Jalen Hyatt and obviously the one and only Saquon Barkley. Are you going to be jamming the Cowboys defense? And are you going to have any interest in this Dallas Cowboys team that has already blown out the Giants once this season? What was it, 40-0 or whatever?
Yeah, I think there is one smash play in this game, and it's the defense here. I mean, the last time these teams faced off, the Cowboys defense put up 37 on them. They've got a 27 and 2 15s also on the year. This Cowboys defense is going to get after the quarterback here. They're going to make his life miserable here on this game. They're coming off the tough loss last week against the Eagles. Huge favorites here. I just don't know which offensive pieces, if any, I really want to play. I don't trust Pollard. I don't know if I can go there. I mean, especially if he's going to be 25-30% owned this week. I gotta give our guy Big T and ODB a shout out though. Here, I was listening to the Pick and Winner show they did, the Print Factory there. They made a good call here. Rico Dowdle was a call they were talking about, mainly on like the afternoon slate, but 4,300. I mean, if the Dallas gets up huge here, say they're up 21 early or 28 or something, we could see like a second half fully dedicated like a Rico Dowdle here. So I think that was a very, very sharp take that Tony and ODB had there on the Print Factory there at 4,300. Maybe not for a main slate like they were saying, maybe more for the afternoon slate, but I thought that was a very, very sharp take that those two goats had there. So definitely that is something to be interested in. But Pollard at 7.3, I think I would just rather spend like $2K more and just get the like McCaffrey, where I know his floor is probably going to be higher than Pollard's ceiling this whole year. So it's just tough for me to get there. I realize the analytics, the spreadsheets, all that's going to point to the direction of playing Pollard. Maybe they get him going here, but I just don't know if I can swallow that or not. I think CD's fine, 8.5. I think St. Brown has more of an upside on this slate, though. I don't really see the Cowboys really pushing it too strong here. I know they got a couple of layups here in the next 2 weeks, and then they're going to be in some tougher games here down the stretch. So I think that, I mean, if you want to play Dak and CD, that's fine. I think I'm going to get a lot of ownership up the Cowboys defense, which I normally don't spend up on defense there. I think Jake Ferguson's fine at 4.6, but no Giants in my player pool though this week.
Oh, 100%. I like that. Cowboys defense, I think I'm going to do the same thing I did last week, and that was play the Browns. When you're going against backup quarterback, a team with a bad offensive line, everything is running good for the Cowboys defense in this spot. Drew, you mentioned earlier that you don't think that spending down at defense is it. I imagine that means that you're going to have a little bit of ownership, at least in the Cowboys defense of 4,400. And I do want to mention Tony Pollard. He's going to be owned, right? God, he has 2 touchdowns on the year, and both of those occurred against the Giants. I'm not saying that just because it happened against the Giants or whatever, but 2 touchdowns. If someone's been running bad on touchdowns this year, it's been Tony Pollard, and it's been the whole reason why he has not, since that Giants game, hit 20 points on fantasy at all. Drew, what are you doing with Pollard, and what are you doing with the Cowboys defense? Those are the 2 hot button topics on this game.
Yeah, to be honest, man, Pollard falls into the same Mixon category for me. I just don't think they're using him properly, at least from a fantasy perspective. They're not using him properly. It's all air game. I think Dak Prescott's throwing it, and obviously CeeDee Lamb is his primary guy. He got there last week on a Hail Mary to the 2-yard line, and that moved a lot of money around. I think even Big T got hurt a little bit by that, even though he had a big score. But yeah, it's really just the air game. I think Pollard's are going to be a fade for me. Same with the Mixon side. I just don't think they're just not utilizing them from an offensive perspective. They're just using them from a safety perspective to get a couple yards or to possibly get a first down without, risking any type of interception or something weird happening from an offensive line. So yeah, Dak Prescott, Jake Ferguson, CeeDee Lamb are the three guys I'm really focusing on. And obviously Cowboys defense at 4,400 is a pretty good spend up against the Giants, who are projected for 11 points, which is a pretty fantastic median projection from Vegas. So thank you for that. But yeah, that's pretty much it. It's really just the Dallas side. I don't think you can get cute with the New York Giants. There's really nothing. I had a lot of Wandale last week and it worked out decently. He definitely hit his floor. But yeah, in this spot, I just don't see how you can really reason with getting to the Giants.
Yeah, 100%. Makes sense there. And I think you guys summed it up. Can't let you guys go without giving me your plays of the slate. So remember the rules: under 20% ownership. We're going to be using Sabres projected ownership to judge. And if you go over that line, well, you're not allowed to do another play of the slate ever again. That's the rules. Now, Snyder, who is your play of the slate of the 10-gamer, November 12th of 2023, week 10?
I'm going to go. I'm pretty sure this guy is going to come in under 20%. He's projected to be the sixth highest owned running back I'm looking at this week. Christian McCaffrey, I think he's going to nuke this week, put up a 40-burger this week, lap the field. A lot of people are going to play Mixon, White, Pollard, Bijan. I think McCaffrey's going to lap those guys and make him optimal this week.
Yeah, towing the line there. 18.73 projected ownership.
I think it'll be like...
His adjusted ownership is 19.08. I'm going to find him in a contest. I'm even going to dive into the quarter arcade. And if he goes above 20%, I'm going to, I promise you. Drew, we got Christian McCaffrey at Snyder's play of the slate. Who is your play of the slate here?
Yeah, I went light last week, and I'm going to go back heavy this week. I think Dak Prescott keeps it going 3 weeks in a row, 30-plus points, 6,700. Dak Prescott's my guy. I think he should be around 12%.
Perfect. And we just saw the script a couple weeks ago against the Rams. They threw it really well. Everyone got there except for our lovely Michael Gallup, who has been phased out of this offense, I would say. Jalen Tolbert has stepped in big time. And we'll get into that in some showdown slate on Thanksgiving, conveniently enough, when the Cowboys are going to be a showdown team for 2 straight weeks. Yeah, so perfect. We got Dak Prescott, and we got Christian McCaffrey. And what else can I expect? I hope he doesn't get steamed up into the 20s. I hope that report doesn't come out. Why not go with another Atlanta Falcon? Arthur Smith has never boned me before. So, Bijan Robinson, my play of the slate. So we got Christian McCaffrey, Dak Prescott, and Bijan Robinson.
Bijan's going to be over 20%.
Yeah. He's projected for lower than McCaffrey as things stand. So I at least have that going for me. I like to burn my hand on the stove. Once it burns, I keep it on there, and until Arthur Smith tells me to pull it off, then I will do that. But thank you all for joining us. If it's not Snyder, if it's not Drew, if it's not me lifting up the $1 million check tomorrow, I hope it's one of y'all, or hopefully split. That would be a great time too. But again, have a great rest of y'all's day, and thank you for joining us, and good luck tomorrow.